So what's going to happen is that the prosecution will submit a sentencing memorandum. The defense will do the same, and the prosecution will argue that there are aggravating circumstances here. The prosecution, I think, will argue that there is evidence that and facts that the jury heard, which are related to the crimes that he was convicted of, that indicate that there should be prison time in this case.
One deal just shattered the silence, and the aftershocks are shaking the industry from coast to coast. Behind the velvet curtains of hip-hop royalty, panic is setting in. Why? Because one of Diddy's most trusted former insiders is finally spilling the secrets people only dared whisper in encrypted chats and backroom deals. This isn't some bitter ex-staffer with a grudge. Gan was deep inside the machine. He saw it all. And now he's going public, alleging that Diddy wasn't just brushing shoulders with a human trafficking ring that's now facing federal heat. He might have been a key player. But that's not even the most shocking part. Gan's claims also link Diddy to one of music's darkest chapters, the murder of Tupac Shakur. Not as a bystander, but as someone possibly pulling strings behind the scenes.
They did not want East Coast rappers to get big. They were suppressing all new artists that was coming out of New York. Jay and Diddy was doing.
The accusations are explosive. Gene Deal isn't just hinting, he's flat out saying that Diddy had deep operational ties to both the FBI and the criminal underworld, and that those lines were crossed more often than anyone wants to admit. If Gene's telling the truth, this isn't just another celebrity fall from grace. This is a man who built his empire on manipulation, surveillance, and unchecked power. Deal claims. Diddy didn't just hide secrets, he was the secret. The one at the center of it all, the calm in the chaos, the puppet master who always stayed just far enough from the fire. But now, decades after the bullets stopped on that Vegas strip, the storm he once controlled may finally be closing in.
Down. That's one reason, other than the Irv Gotti shit that 50 was going through and the poison they was putting in about 50, he had to go elsewhere to California, or with Jay and not with Dre and Eminem to get a deal.
The stakes, absolutely massive, because these allegations aren't echoing from some forgotten podcast. They're colliding head-on with real, unfolding courtroom drama. Federal prosecutors have already stunned the public by revealing that a key witness, identified only as Victim 3 in the superseding indictment, is missing. Not just unreachable, completely vanished. No location, no contact. Not even her legal team can trace her. According to court records, she was prepared to deliver explosive testimony, detailing years of coercion, underground parties, and secret recordings allegedly masterminded by Combs himself. But now, that testimony may never see daylight. And in the shadows, one chilling question keeps surfacing, the kind no one dares say aloud. Did someone make her disappear?
Is that New York rappers was getting 80 to 100, 800 to 1.2 million, or some larger than that, and sign with labels back then.
We're not the only ones asking questions. Legal insiders are now calling this a Ghislaine Maxwell-style operation. Only this time, it's wrapped in luxury brands and platinum plaques. Some former staffers even claim Diddy's longtime chief of staff acted like Maxwell herself, allegedly coordinating escorts, managing substance-fueled parties, and handling NDAs like a mob bookkeeper balancing payoffs. Court filings reference so-called freakoffs, filmed encounters where women were allegedly coerced into performing while Diddy watched and recorded. Victims say those tapes were weaponized. He'd threatened to release them if they didn't obey. And during a raid on his mansion, one federal agent reportedly uncovered over 1,000 bottles of baby oil, calling it proof of an operation that was industrial, calculated, and terrifyingly systematic. But the pressure isn't just coming from the outside, it's rising from within. Enter Suge Knight, locked away, empire gone, nothing left to lose. Now, from his prison cell, Suge is tossing gasoline on the fire. He's allegedly confirming long-whispered rumors that Diddy put a price on Tupac Shakur's head, millions, reportedly, to silence a threat forever. According to newly unsealed court documents in the Shakur case, Diddy's name appeared over 40 times in a covert police interview with Keith D, the last living suspect in Tupac's 1996 murder. Keith didn't just implicate Diddy, he painted him as the instigator. His words, allegedly, "I'll give anything for that dude's head," meaning Suge, meaning Shakur, maybe meaning both.
And that was to destroy East Coast rap. And what I mean by that, and I know people gonna be like, yo, Gene is out of his mind and everything like that. Check this out, bro.
And here's the chilling part. According to Keith D's account, that bounty wasn't whispered in shadows. It was said out loud in front of a crowd, a bold declaration. Just days later, Tupac Shakur was ambushed on the Vegas Strip, shot multiple times, and died in a hospital bed shortly after. Diddy has always denied any involvement, brushing off the allegations as fiction. But prosecutors aren't brushing anything off anymore. They've got tapes, transcripts, witnesses, and this time, no one's laughing. As the trial gains momentum, the puzzle pieces are falling into place. A former LAPD detective claims Keith D's confession should have blown the case wide open years ago, but celebrity power and calculated silence kept it sealed tight. Now that the dam's cracking, what's coming out could be devastating. If even part of this holds true, it points to something far darker. That Diddy may have used his fame not just to influence culture, but to manipulate investigations, control narratives, and bury the truth. Gene Deal alleges Diddy's been an FBI informant all along, feeding bits of information to protect his empire from collapse. And those long-rumored missing witnesses, vanished files, and silenced voices, they're no longer sounding like wild conspiracy, they're starting to look like a plan.
There's different things that's not really beef though, that's just competitive.
Competitiveness.
All right, so you and Diddy, you and Puff cool?
No, I don't really rock with him.
Gene Deal says the threats have already started. A source close to him claims he was recently attacked, and it didn't feel like a random mugging, it felt like a message. But here's the twist, he's not backing down. If anything, the threats have lit a fire under him. He's louder now, bolder, ready to name names and scorch every bridge he once protected. Behind the scenes, insiders say more former employees are thinking about stepping forward, but fear they'll end up like Victim 3. And yes, let's talk about her. Victim 3 was supposed to be the prosecution's ace, the voice that would break the case wide open. She'd allegedly told authorities she was ready to testify, ready to use her real name, ready to expose how deep this goes. Then, radio silence. She's no longer in New York, the feds can't locate her, her lawyer won't take calls, and prosecutors now admit they may have to move forward without her. Think about that. A woman prepared to name names, detail a decade of abuse, and connect Diddy to federal crimes, vanishes before the trial even begins. People inside the courtroom say this could shake the foundation of the case, but others believe the storm is still coming, because if Gene Deal, Suge Knight, and the growing web of testimony around Keith D are telling the truth, then this isn't just about a missing witness. It's about a man who may have crafted a billion-dollar empire while orchestrating chaos in the shadows. Diddy denies everything. His lawyers are calling the freakoffs consensual encounters, dismissing the seized tapes as irrelevant. But prosecutors aren't flinching. They say what's on those tapes, in those testimonies, and locked in those NDAs is the kind of evidence that puts people away for life.
Trust nobody. In Hollywood specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City and California.
And Victim 3 isn't the only dark turn in this story. Federal agents now claim Diddy used jailhouse phones to coordinate with outside contacts, allegedly manipulating witnesses from behind bars. We're talking three-way calls, code words, unauthorized access. This wasn't desperation, it was strategy. It's that level of calculated control that's pushing prosecutors to believe they're not just dealing with a morally corrupt celebrity. They're facing the architect of a multi-decade criminal operation. The comparisons are chilling. One agent reportedly called it R. Kelly meets Epstein meets Hollywood. And here's the terrifying part, they're not even playing all their cards yet. Because the most damning evidence, the files that may connect human trafficking to old-school LA street violence, still hasn't hit the courtroom. It's sitting in hard drives, tapped calls, and sealed witness testimonies, just waiting to surface.
Jay-Z got his ass whooped by his sister-in-law on camera. What's her name? Solange. You got his ass. The feds ain't step in and do nothing. The feds don't care about you getting your ass whooped.
Meanwhile, Suge Knight is reportedly willing to take the stand, telling sources he knows things that could shatter Mr. Bad Boy's image for good. And when asked if Diddy feared Shakur back then, Keefe D's taped answer was immediate. He didn't name a dollar figure, but he wanted the man's head. Keefe says that after Tupac was gone, when Diddy crossed paths with his crew, he wouldn't even make eye contact. He stared at the car, ignored the women, looked rattled, like a man afraid. And if that's true, here's the real question. What else is he terrified of surfacing? And if that's true, here's the real question. What else is he terrified of surfacing? Because 3 former employees from properties in Miami and Los Angeles allege there's something more, something far more explosive than anything in court so far. They call it the Vault. A private, password-locked archive packed with digital footage, tapes, and encrypted files collected over decades. Not grainy surveillance or home movies, allegedly the holy grail of leverage. Material captured at the infamous freakoffs, where sources say phones were confiscated, NDAs handed out like party favors, and nobody left without leaving a piece of themselves on camera. What's in the vault? That's the million-dollar mystery prosecutors are chasing. Former Bad Boy affiliates whisper the archive holds everything from high-profile guests in illegal acts to compromising footage of music executives, athletes, even government-connected figures. And not just participants, allegedly victims too. Some too young, some too impaired to consent. And some, like Victim 3, who may have been ready to testify until someone reminded them just how much the vault could still destroy.
What about the filth that's starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial? This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible things.
A former producer who toured Diddy's LA mansion back in 2017 recalls something strange. Behind a hidden panel in the studio hallway was a locked server room, guarded by tech guys who, in his words, didn't look like they worked in music at all. The message was clear. This wasn't about creativity. It was about control. And if even half of that is true, then we're not just witnessing one man's fall. We're staring at an insurance policy built on fear, manipulation, and exploitation. Because if prosecutors gain access to that so-called vault, or worse if someone leaks it, it won't just be Diddy whose empire burns. There are A-list names, entire careers, dangling by a thread, which brings us to Cassie. She was never meant to speak, not with a reported $5 million NDA hanging over her, not after the psychological damage she allegedly endured, and certainly not with Diddy's army of lawyers waiting to strike. But she did it anyway. She broke the silence, and when she did, everything shifted. Cassie's story isn't just about what he did, it's about what they all did. The system, the grooming, the manipulation, the way intimacy was weaponized, turned into currency, traded like poker chips. Victims were kept silent with payouts, threats, and emotional isolation, and now that silence is cracking. The question is, who falls with it?
Sorry, I'm just really, I'm in this moment right now. This is crazy. Sorry. People don't really know how much what it does to you when something that you love is taken from you. and thrown away like it don't even matter, and then they move on with their lives and you're stuck. You're stuck. During those years, you're still stuck 21 years later.
Cassie's case didn't just spark headlines. It laid the foundation for everything that's come since. She named names, she gave dates, she handed over evidence. And while her lawsuit was quickly settled, it cracked something wide open. That single act triggered a federal investigation, led to search warrants, raids, and exposed the possible existence of what's now being called the Vault. Now, as federal prosecutors prepare to bring more alleged victims to the stand, insiders say it was Cassie's bravery that opened the floodgates, but that courage may have come at a cost. Sources say Cassie is still at risk. Several of her close friends have reportedly changed phone numbers. One claimed her email was hacked. And while Diddy continues to deny any wrongdoing, the timing of these disruptions has raised serious red flags. What started as one woman's fight may have unraveled an entire machine. But if the people behind that machine still have power, they might not be done yet.
And then what's the stuff that's happening with Wendy Williams? Do you think this is all connection to? Of course.
But Cassie isn't the only one putting everything on the line. Gene Deal is still speaking out. And Suge Knight, locked up but far from irrelevant, is feeding information to anyone willing to listen. But now, the conversation isn't just about Diddy. It's about the culture he cultivated, the silence, the manipulation, the way fame was weaponized, and how a generation of young artists were pulled into a system that promised luxury but delivered trauma. According to Gene, Diddy wasn't some outlier. He was the template, the playbook. Meanwhile, federal agents are combing through the evidence seized during the March raids: firearms, cash, NDAs. But one detail stands out. A high-ranking investigator reportedly told an insider they recovered external hard drives filled with video folders, each labeled by date and by initials. That's not just evidence, that's a digital archive, a mapped timeline, a catalogue of a kingdom built in shadows, and possibly the key to tearing it down.
You understand? I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brand.
The question now is who else gets dragged in? Multiple reports claim Diddy's inner circle included celebrities, industry mogul, and even political donors. If those tapes exist, and if even a fraction of the rumors are accurate, we could be looking at a domino effect across fashion, sports, and entertainment. The FBI has already hinted that this investigation spans multiple states and multiple industries, which means this isn't just a human trafficking trial, it's a cultural reckoning. 20 years overdue, and through it all, we're left with a man who once danced in music videos, wearing a fur coat and shades, now nervously clutching a courtroom water bottle. While jury selection wraps up around him, Diddy has pleaded not guilty. He has the money to mount a world-class defense. But if the vault is real, and if more victims find the strength to speak, there may not be a defense strong enough to stop what's coming.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he has to, he won't get out until 70 years old. He's about 70. That's when they start talking about...
For years, insiders whispered what prosecutors never dared confirm, that Diddy's aura of invincibility wasn't just about money or star power. It came from something far more calculated: protection from within. According to multiple retired agents and 2 former associates, Diddy may have operated as a confidential informant for the FBI, going all the way back to the early 2000s. The theory: he provided intel on rival artists, criminal crews, and drug networks embedded in the music industry in exchange for freedom and cover. A quiet deal, mutual gain. He stayed in the spotlight while federal agencies got names, locations, leverage. That kind of alleged relationship could explain how Diddy managed to dodge serious fallout for over 2 decades. While those around him were arrested, raided, or vanished from the public eye, Diddy always seemed to float above it all. Even when violent footage surfaced, even as lawsuits piled up from ex-employees and former partners, nothing ever stuck. That kind of untouchability wasn't just odd, it was alarming. Behind closed doors, executives reportedly called him untouchable. But now, with Homeland Security and federal prosecutors circling, a darker question looms. Has the very system that once protected him decided he's no longer worth protecting?
What's really going to be interesting is the parade of celebrities who we expect to be mentioned and or called into that courtroom. You know, people who we hadn't heard about prior, like Mike Myers. You know, Austin Powers, Mike Myers, why is he getting called? Why is he on the witness list? That'll be fascinating. And then, of course, there are the no-name, quote unquote, women who are going to have to find every ounce of courage they have.
If Diddy was cooperating, what changed? Some legal analysts believe he simply stopped being useful. Others suggest something deeper, that the scope of his alleged crimes finally outweighed the value he brought to the table. As his empire grew darker, more chaotic, he may have crossed the line from asset to liability. And once that line is crossed, even the most protected figure can become a problem the system can't ignore. One source familiar with organized crime cases put it bluntly: when an informant's actions spark public outrage or moral collapse, federal agencies are forced to act. The fallout becomes too big to hide. But what makes this turn so chilling is what it implies: that federal protection may have enabled years of unchecked abuse. If Diddy's alleged relationship with the FBI stalled investigations or discouraged local authorities from digging deeper, then the system didn't just fail. It may have helped create the very environment it was supposed to prevent. Survivors who once tried to speak out may have hit a wall, not just from Diddy's lawyers, but from institutions that were supposed to protect them. And now, as the veil lifts, what we're watching may not just be the fall of a music mogul, it could be the unraveling of the network that protected him all along.
What's confusing is all of those things that you just said are also included in the racketeering count. So we don't know what the vote is. It's hard to read what they...
But this opens the door to something far more unsettling. What else has been buried in those sealed files and blacked out memos? If Diddy truly fed intel to federal agencies, there's a trail somewhere. And if that paper trail ever sees daylight through court discovery or a leak, we may find out just how far this goes. Which artists were watched? Which crimes were ignored? Which officials turned a blind eye? Because this may not be just a story of celebrity corruption, it could be a reflection of something far more rotten. A justice system that protected power while silencing victims. So we don't end this story with a verdict, we end it with a warning. If what Gene Deal, Suge Knight, and Cassie have revealed is just the surface, then hip-hop's golden era might be hiding a legacy far darker than anyone imagined. And the next witness, the next leak, the next raid, could be the moment everything collapses. But what do you think? Is Diddy just the face of something deeper? Or is he the architect of an empire built in shadows? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to hear the truth. And stay locked in. Because this is just the beginning. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and above all, keep your eyes open.